Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Again, my name is Katie O'Hara. I'm the Public Information Officer with Southwest Area Team 1, and this is press briefing for Alexander Mountain Fire. Today we're going to get a quick update from our Incident Commander, Carl Schwope, followed by an operational update from our Operations Section Chief, Jason Coyle, followed by an update on evacuations from our Larimer County Sheriff, Sheriff Fan. So with that, I'll pass it over to our Incident Commander.
Good afternoon, Carl Schwope, Incident Commander on the Alexander Mountain Fire. A lot of good news you're going to hear today about the fire. Fire crew's making really good progress. Acres are unchanged since yesterday, still at 9,668 acres. Percent containment is going to go up to 54%, and no new structures damaged. Yesterday you heard one of the challenges we had in the southwest corner. Fire crews being who they are, they made quick work of that. Put in some containment line and some really steep country, got that done, and then worked on mopping up and securing that line today. So with all of those successes, things are looking really good on the fire, and you're gonna hear a lot more of that. So appreciate everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Hi, good afternoon. Jason Coyle, Operations Section Chief for Southwest Area Team 1. So I'll start up at the top center of the fire and at Jug Gulch. So we're the top middle of the fire. There, back to the east, yesterday I talked about the crews that were in there working to control that portion of the line. They're almost all the way tied in to that western point. And then the whole eastern side of the fire is controlled. The edge of the fire is going to be black on the map. That's part of what Carl was talking that added to that containment. And we're still going to have a patrol in there just to make sure that nothing rolls out from interior of the fire on those steep slopes and gets out there. But there, and then all the way along Highway 34, all the way to Midway, all that's going to be showed as contained. Again, we'll still have a presence in there, but the fire's not going to move out of that area. And then starting up on the northern end there on the west side, crews are still working in there to pick up all that heat, mopping up, we call it. And what that means is that from the fire's edge, a certain distance in, and the distance is dependent upon what we perceive as a threat to the line. So in some fuel types, it may be a chain, we call it 66 feet. In other fuel types, we may need to go in deeper. But that is, it's slow work, and it's especially slow work in the mixed conifer where there's a lot more vegetation on the ground. That the vegetation duff can be very thick, and when it's really thick, it takes longer to mop it up, and it takes a lot more water, it takes a lot more time, and that's the work that's going on in there. All that being done to protect the homes and ensure that when we're ready to walk away from this, that there's no problems downstream. So Carl also talked about the success that we saw in the southwest corner, and I just wanted to articulate how we approach our command and control, basically. So the intent yesterday was what I said, to prevent the fire from moving west, right? Crews have that intent. They know why that intent is being communicated to them. And then we talk about what we intend to do. So the intent yesterday was to burn out that section of the line, right? That's what we talked about doing. But they also have decision space. They have the ability to alter their plans to meet that intent if there's a better option. And when the crews got in there and started working down that line, they were able to pick it up and go direct. And so the way we evaluate that is, if the commander was here and saw what I saw, would he do what I did? Absolutely. They picked the right choice on the tactics that they chose, and they made sure that they controlled that line by not burning it out. We don't have to mop it up as much, and that was a big success. So kudos to crew for taking that initiative and for the success that they were able to enjoy yesterday, and we'll all benefit from it. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Larimer County Sheriff John Fan. So I have a couple of things I want to talk with you about this afternoon. One of the first ones I want to talk about is the structures that we have lost in this fire. So thankfully we have had no loss of life and very insignificant injuries. However, we have lost structures, and that is a grieving process, just like losing a loved one or losing a pet that our community members are going through. So we've lost 26 residential structures in the fire. We've had 4 with some minor damage and 21 outbuildings, so barns, sheds, those kinds of things. And again, we have notified each one of those individuals who have lost a structure personally, and we have offered our resources, our condolences, our thoughts and our prayers to them as they go through this process. On to some other things. So evacuations here, because the amazing work that Southwest Team 1 has done and the hundreds and hundreds of people who have been here since day one, we've lifted a significant number of our evacuations. So basically any place that was a voluntary evacuation area, we've lifted that completely. Most of the places that are mandatory evacuation areas have gone to voluntary at this time. We do have a couple of hard closures that will still exist and will be in place for a little while. So we have moved our hard closure roadblocks back to the dam store at Highway 34 and the mouth of the canyon. There's also a hard closure at just above Waltonia Canyon on Highway 34. So if you're coming from Estes Park and you're heading towards Loveland, you'll only get about a third of the way down before we turn you around. You cannot get into Waltonia Canyon from where the roadblock is. And we also have a hard closure still on Cedar Park and the Storm Mountain area. Our plan tomorrow is to start letting residents who live in the lower part of the canyon, so basically from the dam store to Idlewild Lane back into their residences, but only residents. So that won't happen until noon. And the reason that won't happen until noon is our partners with the Loveland Power Utility Company, Loveland Electric Company, will not have power into those homes until that happens. And that's important for us to have that utility there, because that's how they can make 911 calls if they have experienced an emergency of some kind. So starting at noon tomorrow, we will open up the checkpoint at the mouth of the canyon for residents only as far up as Idlewild. Okay, if you live beyond that, you will not be able to get beyond that. Bring your credentials. We will need to see some proof that you actually belong there. We've had bad actors, not in this incident, but in past incidents, try to get into there and take advantage of people who are vulnerable. So if you can't prove you belong there, you're not getting in. For the folks up on Storm Mountain, we are going to start a credentialing process. So starting tomorrow at 8 o'clock in the morning, down at the Larimer campus in Loveland, which is off of Denver and First Street, and as well as the Estes Park Event Center, starting at 8 o'clock in the morning, we are going to start doing credentialing. And again, that will be the only way that you can start accessing your residences, but not tomorrow. Our plan is to allow 2 days for that to happen. So you're going to need to bring proof that you belong in that community, because that's where we've had the damage to the structures. So bring your driver's license, bring some other documentation. We'll get you credentialed. The plan is to allow residents, those who have been credentialed, to access those communities starting Wednesday morning. Okay? So again, you can't get up there tomorrow or Tuesday. You got to get credentialed. You go to larimer.org, follow the links for the Alexander Fire, and there'll be a lot more information about that. Let me see here. So when we talk about evacuation, some of you are inquiring about numbers. So today, with the lifting of the evacuation points, some going to mandatory, some going to voluntary, that leaves us with 1,101 contacts. So 1,101 contacts in the mandatory evacuation and 336 voluntary contacts in the voluntary area. Again, all of this is possible because a huge shout out to Southwest Team 1, all of our partners. Our utility teams are working hard to get power back into those canyons and back up the canyon. At this time, like I said, we don't anticipate Waltonia being open for a while, and we don't anticipate Highway 34 to Estes being open probably for about a week, and that's because of the utility work that has to go in place in there. We know that this impacts homes, we know that this impacts residents, and we know it impacts businesses. And we're trying diligently to get you back into there so that we can reduce the economic loss and so you can get back into your home. I appreciate the opportunity. I think that's all I have at the moment. Katie?
Thanks. Okay, we'll go ahead and open up we'll do about 15 minutes worth of questions. I'll help my best to facilitate which one of these folks. We do have representatives from the state as well as the Forest Service here, so if you have specific questions for them as well. So, questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
What do you think is the main factor for the successes that we're seeing so far? What has been the main factor behind that?
Main factor behind successes so far.
So there's not one main factor. But I'll tell you the things that contribute to the success. One is the coordination. Two is that by allowing, by having the right trained people out there in the field and allowing them decision space to make the right call, they can take advantage of small windows of opportunity, and you stack up a bunch of those small windows of opportunity and you end up having large successes. You try to make a plan the day before, make everybody execute that plan rigidly, and you're going to miss opportunities, and you're going to have a plan that's a mismatch for the environment. So I think collectively, those are what have led to the successes, that coordination.
Kind of two questions. What do we expect for weather overnight tonight? What's the forecast? And then also, one of the homeowners who's told me that her family lost her home, she says that they're being required to clean up their property after all of this. Can anyone elaborate on that and what homeowners, is that just a rumor? Should they actually prepare to be getting equipment and such?
So we'll start with the first question, is talking about weather overnight, and then we'll bounce to the cleanup efforts.
Yeah, what we're seeing for weather is a chance of thunderstorms, but the thunderstorms today are mostly going to be dry thunderstorms, not a lot of precip, and that'll continue tonight into tomorrow. But then as we move in later into the week, the thunderstorms should have more precipitation with them. Chances of wetting rain, 1/4 inch or better as we get closer to Thursday.
And unfortunately, I can't speak to the veracity of the information you've received. That's outside my scope. Oftentimes, our Office of Emergency Management helps with recovery efforts, both for the environment as well as for residences. So, them having to clean up their own property, I just don't know. Thank you. Or sorry.
Yeah, kind of have two questions here. I know yesterday when we talked, there was a damage assessment team that had just come back. They said they still had 2 roads to be able to go through. Were they able to get to those 2 roads and see if any structures may have been impacted? And then also on the investigation side of things, I know our forensics team was able to get up there yesterday as well. Are there any updates in regards to the potential costs?
Talk damage assessment first. Okay.
Sure.
So the damage assessment teams were able to do their surveys and complete them. As far as we know, every structure that's been damaged or destroyed, we have accounted for. Now, that's pretty high probability. If there's one hiding back there somewhere that we weren't aware of, then we don't know that, but everyone that we're aware of, we've contacted and accounted for.
Sheriff, do you want to talk about the?
Sure. Okay. So in regards to the investigation, I know Forest Service investigators as well as Sheriff's Office investigators were up at the point of origin yesterday and as well as today. There is, at this point, I don't know the results of what they found today. I know, so for me to speak about it would be just giving you speculation, and I don't know for sure. I know they were looking at a variety of things. There was sign of human activity, but they also had 5 lightning strikes in the area around the same time. So to tell you what the results were, but I will tell you that we, as we do in every investigation, we will let the evidence lead us rather than making the evidence fit our narrative. Okay? Yeah.
Sir.
So a lot of the evacuation orders have been lifted, but is there a timeline for whenever the next might follow?
Do you have a timeline for the next level of evacuations and when you think those might be lifted?
So the only places where you can't get into right now is going to be the Big Thompson Canyon at this moment, from the dam store through Drake up into Waltonia, and then Cedar Park and Storm Mountain. We plan on giving the residents in the lower part of the canyons from the dam store to Idlewild a couple of days where it's just them, and there's still a lot of fire activity going on in the area, to make their assessments, clean out their houses. Dumpsters have been dropped along Highway 34 because there's going to be a lot of food spoilage. And so we're going to give them a couple of days to deal with that before we open up that lower part of the canyon. The part from Idlewild to Waltonia will remain closed until we can get the utility work done, so about a week, because we want folks to be able to go into their residences when they have power so that they can call 911 if they have an emergency. So we're estimating, and it's just an estimate right now, that perhaps a week from tomorrow we'll be able to open up Highway 34 the whole way. The park, Cedar Park, Storm Mountain, that will be a little bit of a longer process because there has been loss to structures. Again, we're going to do the credentialing starting tomorrow. We'll allow residents only in starting at 8 o'clock on Wednesday morning. We'll probably give them through the rest of the week and into the first part of next week for just them again to do their damage assessments, talk to their families, grieve with their neighborhoods, do those kinds of things before we even begin to talk with them about opening it up to the public middle of the following week. Okay.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Sheriff, I heard, and maybe it's just me because my hearing's hard, but I heard you talk about credentials and credentialing. Can you maybe just say where people can go to, if they're confused about which is which? Because you said tomorrow, show up with your driver's license.
Good question. So we will give you a credential when you get through the credentialing process. And to start the credentialing process, you either need to show up at the Larimer campus in Loveland, which is at Denver and First Street, or you need to show up at the Estes Park Event Center at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. It'll be going on 8 to 4 tomorrow and 8 to 4 on Tuesday. But you need to bring some proof of who you are and that you belong. For you to go and say, hey, I'm Johnny Fan and I live at 123 Idlewild Lane, you need to substantiate that claim in some fashion with some other form of credential. Again, a driver's license, a utility bill. There's a whole list of things that they will take if you go to the larimer.org website. And then we will give you a document that you can present at the checkpoint that will allow you to pass through the checkpoint to go visit your home. Great question, thank you.
So that's going on tomorrow and Tuesday to begin letting in on Wednesday, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Are there any containment lights on the burn scar Cameron Peak, or is that not necessarily like the northern side?
So talking about how did the Cameron Peak burn scar on that northern side impact?
So the fire, there's a few stringers of fuel left in the Cameron Peak scar where the fires touched one another that were still active. And that's where those hotshot crews that are going across the top are working, just to make sure that that's completely secure and they don't have to worry about anything moving around in the future. But over the large majority of that whole northern side where the two fires came together, the fire didn't advance into the Cameron Peak scar. The scar's too new, and there's not enough vegetation there. We do fly infrared flights every night that check the perimeter, so we continue to validate that, especially if we got some outflow winds on it that really would kind of fan it if there was something there. But we don't anticipate any movement in that area.
Can you repeat the containment one more time at this point?
54%, 5-4.
I just realized I haven't asked about resources. I know that's been a big conversation when it comes to this fire and all the resources needed across the country currently. How are we doing on resources fighting the Alexander Mountain fire? Is there still a big need to have people coming here?
Great. So questions about resources?
Yeah, so far as resource needs, we have, at this time, we've gotten all the resources in that we need. We ask for the resources, take them a little while to get there, but each day, because of the threat, because of the values around this fire, we were able to get what we needed. And so right now, we're at a good place for resources, and that's why you see the progress that you see. Just a lot of good folks doing a lot of hard work. And then, so now, as we start gaining containment, now there's other fires that need our resources. So here in a few days, it'll probably be a reverse. We're going to start releasing resources, and they can go start to other priority fires. We're always going to maintain what we need to make sure that this fire doesn't rekindle or start to move again, that we can finish the job. So we'll always make sure we have what we need.
How many firefighters on the ground right now?
The last report is 508. As of this time, I don't have today's numbers, but it'll be right around the same as yesterday.
Any other questions? Awesome. Great. Well, we'll see you guys back here same time tomorrow, Monday. So thanks so much, and have a great